Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something that is, without a doubt, a cornerstone of IT administration in the Windows world: group policy. It's kind of like this invisible force that keeps these huge networks organized and secure. We're about to pull back the curtain and show you exactly how it works.
So, picture this. You're an IT admin, and you've got a new task. You need to change the password policy for everyone. Or maybe deploy a new printer, or block access to the control panel. Doing that on one computer? Easy. But on 1,000? No way. That's the exact headache group policy was designed to cure, managing tons of users and computers at scale without, losing your mind in the process.
So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off by talking about what group policy really is. Then we'll look at its main components. After that, we'll get into the pretty clever way it applies all these settings, and we'll wrap things up by looking at why this whole system is just so critical for pretty much any organization.
All right, let's start with the big picture. How does group policy manage to take what could be thousands of totally separate desktops and bring them all under one single centralized point of control?
At its core, it's really that simple. It's a central rulebook. Instead of walking over to each computer and making a change, you write the rules in one place and the whole network just listens. Honestly, it's the difference between whispering instructions to every single person in a huge crowd versus just picking up a megaphone. Okay, so let's get a little more specific. What is the actual thing we're dealing with when we say group policy?
The main vehicle for all of this is something called a group policy object, or just GPO for short. Think of a GPO like a digital folder. And inside this folder, you just stuff all the rules you want to enforce. Things like, hey, the desktop wallpaper has to be the company logo, or nope, users cannot install unapproved software. It's basically just the container for all your settings.
Now, here's where it gets interesting. A GPO is actually split into two parts, and they live in different places. The first part, the group policy container, is stored in Active Directory, which is kind of like the network's main phone book. You can think of this as the GPO's ID card. It just holds the basic info. The other part, the group policy template, lives in a special shared folder called sysvol. This is the important one. It holds the actual rules and scripts. For any policy to actually work, a computer has to find both its ID card and the rulebook.
So we have these GPOs, right? Our folder's full of rules. But how do we aim them at the right people and computers? I mean, you definitely don't want the accountants getting the software meant for the engineering team. This is where the structure of your network becomes absolutely key. And the most important building block here is the organizational unit, or OU. An OU is just a container you create to organize everything. You might have an OU for the accounting department, another one for sales, and maybe one just for your servers. And this organization is so crucial because you apply or link your GPOs directly to these OUs.
Now, this slide shows a really important concept: inheritance. Policies flow downwards, kind of like a waterfall. A policy you apply way up the domain level, that affects everyone. Then a more specific policy you put on the sales parent OU will apply to just them. And an even more specific one on a sales New York child OU will only apply to that group. The rule is, the closer the policy is to the user or computer, the more weight it has.
And that brings us to the main point here. Planning your OU structure is everything. A logical structure that groups similar users and computers together makes applying policies just incredibly efficient. You can set a rule one time for the entire accounting OU instead of trying to create the same rule for 50 different people. Get this wrong, and you might end up applying finance policies to the marketing team, and you'll be creating chaos instead of control.
Okay, so we've defined the rules in a GPO. We've linked them to an OU. But what's the actual mechanism that makes it users' desktop backgrounds suddenly change, or a piece of software just install itself? How does that actually happen?
Well, the magic happens through something called a client-side extension, or a CSE. See, when your computer receives a GPO, it doesn't really understand the whole thing at once. Instead, it has a whole team of specialists, the CSEs. There's a CSE just for security settings, another one for software installation, one for folder redirection. You get the idea.
I know, that can sound a little abstract, so let's use an analogy here to make it perfectly clear.
First off, think of the entire group policy system as a massive library delivery service. Its only job is to get the right books, which are our policy settings, to the right library branches, which are our computers. The system itself doesn't need to know how to read the books. Its job is just to deliver them.
Now, on each computer, there's a team of expert librarians. These are our client-side extensions.
You've got a security librarian, a software installation librarian, a scripts librarian. Each one is a total specialist in their own little area. And this right here is the key. When the truck full of books, that's our GPO, arrives at the computer, the security librarian only grabs the security books. The software librarian only grabs the software installation books. Each CSC takes only its relevant settings and knows exactly what to do with them. It's this modular design that makes group policies so incredibly powerful and flexible.
So we've covered the what and the how. Let's wrap this whole thing up by focusing on the why. Why do organizations spend so much time and effort getting this right? The benefits really boil down to three main things: control, consistency, and efficiency. You get control by enforcing critical security settings everywhere with just a few clicks. You get consistency because every machine is set up the same way, which cuts down on complexity and support calls. And you get efficiency because your admin tasks are so much simpler. You can even delegate certain tasks, like letting a department manager control their own printers without giving them the keys to the entire kingdom.
And that brings us to our final thought. Group policy was really designed for a world of on-premise servers and domain-joined computers. But as more and more companies move to cloud services and use mobile devices that might never join a traditional domain, well, the principles of centralized management are still there, but the tools are changing. So the real question becomes, how do we keep this level of control and security in a hybrid, cloud-first world? Figuring that out is the next big challenge for anyone working in IT.